The first time I saw my dead wife's book, her name was not on the cover. My son's was. The box arrived at Mercer Press on a Tuesday morning mislabeled as paper samples. I cut the tape with the same brass knife I had used for 31 years and found 12 advance copies of a memoir called The Quiet Daughter. Under the title in silver letters it said, by Evan Mercer. My wife Ruth had spent 6 years writing that manuscript. She had died before deciding whether it should ever be published. The book contained our daughter Leah's addiction relapse and recovery parts of her life Ruth had promised would remain private unless Leah gave permission. Evan had not asked her. He had not asked me. And judging by the launch card tucked inside the box, he planned to announce the book 3 nights later at the library, where his mother had once deposited her original pages for safekeeping. My name is Daniel Mercer. I was 64 years old, then owner of a family print shop in Cedar Falls, Iowa, and I knew exactly how many people could fake a cover. Very few could fake a printing history. Mercer Press sat between a plumbing supply store and a bakery, its front windows still carrying the gold lettering my father painted in 1974. We printed everything from funeral programs to local books. I grew up breathing paper dust, then added digital presses and archival scanning without changing the shop's character. Ruth used to say I trusted machinery because machinery admitted when something jammed. People preferred pretending everything was fine until smoke came out. That was true of our family too. Ruth and I had been married 38 years. She taught middle school English, wore bright scarves even in August, and could make a room full of 13-year-olds care about a comma. At home, she wrote in longhand at the kitchen table while the dishwasher hummed. She used yellow legal pads, black felt-tip pens, and paper clips shaped like tiny owls. The manuscript began after Leah came home from treatment for the second time. Leah was 26 then. Evan was 32. Ruth said our family had spent too many years speaking in code. A rough patch. Bad choices, stress, she's doing better, and she wanted to write honestly about what addiction did to a house. Not to punish Leah, to tell the truth about fear, shame, boundaries, and what love could not cure by itself. Leah agreed on one condition: nothing about her would be published unless she read and approved the final version while sober and stable. Ruth wrote that promise on the inside cover of the first binder. Leah decides what becomes public. I printed the sentence on a small card and laminated it for her. It sat beside her computer for years. That card was the first piece of leverage Evan overlooked. The second was the way Ruth worked. Every few months, she brought a new draft to the shop after closing. I printed 2 bound copies with a job number on the final blank page. One copy stayed in our fireproof cabinet. The other went home with her handwritten notes. The third was Ruth's friendship with Dr. Miriam Lowe, Director of Special Collections at the Public Library. Miriam had started a local writer's archive and convinced Ruth to deposit a sealed copy of the manuscript, along with a signed description of its authorship and restrictions. Evan knew about the manuscript. He did not know how thoroughly it had documented itself. For most of his life, Evan had been the child who looked fine. While Leah's struggles consumed our attention, he went to college, built a marketing career, married Brooke, and became useful before anyone could ask whether he was hurt. I admired that and used it as an excuse not to look closer. When Leah relapsed at 29, Evan drove 4 hours to find her and brought her home. When Ruth began chemotherapy 2 years later, he built spreadsheets for medication, meals, rides, and insurance claims. He typed several chapters when Ruth's hands became too weak to manage a keyboard. He did real work. That fact would later become his strongest defense. Ruth died 3 years before the box arrived. In her final month, she stopped asking about publication. She cared about the maple tree outside the bedroom window, whether the dog had eaten, and whether Leah had enough gas to get home after meetings. 2 weeks before she died, she asked me to bring the manuscript binder to her bed. She rested one hand on the cover and said, "Don't let grief make decisions for me." I asked what she wanted done with it. "Nothing yet. Should I destroy it? No. Publish it? No." Then she looked at Leah, who was sitting in the window chair with tears running down her face. When Leah is ready, she decides what happens to her story. "You protect that," I promised. Evan stood in the doorway. He heard her. After the funeral, the manuscript went into the fireproof cabinet at the shop. I gave Leah a key and kept the second one. Evan never asked for one. For a while, we behaved like a family that had survived the worst thing. Sunday dinners resumed. Leah stayed sober, moved into an apartment near the community college, and began training as a peer recovery coach. Evan visited less often, but when he came, he fixed things. He replaced my office router, redesigned the shop website, and helped me create online backups. That last part mattered. I had always been too trusting with family access. Evan knew the building alarm code, the computer passwords, the cloud account, and where we stored old proofs. I saw convenience. He saw opportunity. The year before the box arrived, Evan's marketing agency began failing, though he hid it from us and partly from Brooke. What I knew then was only that he had started asking questions about Ruth's manuscript. "Do you ever read it?" he asked one Sunday while drying dishes. "Sometimes." "Do you think Mom wanted people to see it?" She wanted Leah to decide. That isn't exactly an answer. It was Ruth's answer. He set a plate into the cabinet too hard. She spent years on it. Letting it sit in a box isn't honoring her. Neither is using it before Leah is ready. Leah will never be ready. Leah was in the next room. I lowered my voice. "That is not yours to decide." Evan said nothing else, but the argument did not leave his face. A month later, he offered to scan the old handwritten drafts before the ink faded. I thanked him and said the library had archival copies. His expression changed for half a second. At the time, I thought he was embarrassed he had not known. Now I understand he was recalculating. The morning the box arrived, my employee Rosa found me standing over the books. Rosa had worked at Mercer Press for 19 years and had the rare ability to be loyal without becoming blind. She picked up one copy, read the cover, and looked at me. "Did you know?" "No." She opened to the copyright page. The publisher was Northbridge House, a respected regional press. The copyright belonged to Evan Mercer. An author's note described the book as a son's account of holding his family together through addiction and terminal illness. Ruth's name appeared in the dedication, for Mom, who gave me the story. I felt something hot rise into my throat. Then I turned to Chapter 7. Leah's real name was gone, replaced by Lila, but every recognizable detail remained. The motel where we found her. The bracelet she stole from Ruth. The pregnancy she lost during her first year of recovery. A conversation she had with Ruth at 2 a.m. and had never repeated to anyone but us. Evan had made the details sharper. He turned Leah's worst nights into scenes. He also changed himself. In Ruth's original draft, Evan was absent during Leah's second intervention because he refused to come. In the book, he led it. In Ruth's account of chemotherapy, Evan missed a week of appointments after an argument with Ruth about money. In his version, he became the steady son who never left. He had not just stolen his mother's book, he had rewritten the family so he could finally be the hero. Rosa touched the launch card. The Quiet Daughter, an evening with Evan Mercer. Friday, 7 p.m., Cedar Falls Public Library. Presented as part of the Ruth Mercer Memorial Lecture Series. My wife's name was being used to promote the theft of her work. I wanted to call Evan and tell him exactly what he had done. Instead, I made my first consequential decision. I closed the shop for the morning and drove to Leah's apartment. Protect the vulnerable person first. Leah opened the door in workout clothes, hair still wet. She was 35, 5 years sober, and had learned to read my face faster than I could arrange it. What happened? I held out the book. She did not take it. What is that? Something Evan published. Her eyes moved to the title, then to his name. No, I haven't called him. Does it have me in it? Yes. How much? Too much. She sat down on the arm of the couch as if her knees had stopped working. I placed the book on the coffee table face down. You do not have to read it today. Other people will. Not if we can stop distribution. Can we? I don't know yet. She looked at me with the same expression she had worn in treatment. The fear that an adult was about to soften the truth because she could not handle it. I had made that mistake with her before, so I told her exactly what I knew. Advance copies. Launch Friday. Publisher listed. Real details, changed names. Ruth's authorship erased. Leah covered her mouth. He promised me he deleted those recordings. What recordings? Mom used to record our conversations when her hands hurt. Evan helped organize the files. After she died, I asked him if he still had them. He said no. That was a new layer. Did you give permission for any of those conversations to be used? No. Do you want to see the book? She stared at it for a long time. Not alone. We read only enough to identify the private material. Leah stopped twice to breathe. One chapter described the night she called Ruth from a gas station after using again. Evan had not been there. The dialogue was nearly exact. Ruth must have recorded or transcribed it. Leah pointed to one paragraph. That is her sentence. Mom wrote that in a letter to me. Do you still have the letter? Yes. Keep it somewhere safe. Leah stood and paced to the window. I'm supposed to speak at the library next month. Half the recovery community knows me. Then we act before Friday. She turned on me suddenly. You knew Evan resented me. The accusation was fair. I knew he was angry. You always said he was tired. He was tired. So was I. I didn't steal a dead woman's book. I looked down. I protected his image because he was the child who seemed all right. He wasn't all right, Dad. He was just quieter. Ruth had written a book about the danger of family silence, and I had continued practicing it after she died. I said, You're right. Leah's anger softened, but it did not disappear. What happens now? We find out what he told the publisher. My second decision was to preserve the evidence before Evan knew I had the book. Back at the shop, Rosa photographed the box label packing list and every identifying mark. The shipping label showed the intended recipient as E. Mercer, care of Mercer Press. Evan had used our business address probably because Brooke handled mail at home. The packing list included an author account number and a contact at Northbridge House named Allison Beck. I did not call her yet. First, I opened the fireproof cabinet. The key turned. The drawer slid out. The final manuscript binder was gone. So were 3 earlier drafts. The cabinet showed no forced entry. That meant someone had used a key or opened it while it was unlocked. Only Leah and I had keys. Leah still had hers. I checked the shop alarm log. Evan's code had opened the building on 8 evenings over 4 months, always after 9 p.m. He had told me he came by twice to work on the website. Rosa printed the log. Then I checked the digital press archive. Every book job printed at Mercer Press received a number built from the year, month, and sequence. The file server kept PDF snapshots unless manually purged. Ruth's drafts appeared under her name, each with metadata and production notes. The final complete draft was Job 19-11-042. I opened it. The title was What We Could Not Carry. Author Ruth Mercer. The first page contained the laminated promise typed into the manuscript itself. Any publication must be approved by Leah Mercer regarding all passages drawn from her life treatment, private correspondence, or recorded conversations. The file had been created on Ruth's laptop and saved to the shop archive. The system showed no edits after Ruth's death. I compared Evan's book. Roughly 60% was copied or lightly changed from Ruth's final draft. Another 20% came from earlier versions she had rejected. The rest was Evan's framing, including scenes that elevated him and sharpened Leah's humiliation. Rosa sat beside me, reading silently. He thought changing names would make it his, she said. He thought no one would compare them. Most people wouldn't know how. But I do. I called Miriam Lowe at the library. Miriam was 70 with silver hair cut blunt at her jaw and a voice that made every sentence sound catalogued. She had been Ruth's closest friend outside the family. When I told her about the book, she went silent. Then she said, "The event request came through Evan. He said you supported it." I did not. He provided a letter from Ruth. What letter? A statement saying she wanted him to finish the manuscript if she could not. Do you have it? Yes. Do not confront him. Preserve the original file and send a copy to me. I will also notify the library director. Not yet. Let me see what we have. Miriam understood. She had spent her life protecting records from people who preferred memory. 10 minutes later, her email arrived. The letter was on Ruth's old-school stationery. It said, "If I am unable to complete the book, I want Evan to help carry it into the world. He understands the family history and has my trust." The signature looked like Ruth's. The date was 6 weeks before her death. For one terrifying minute, I wondered whether Evan had permission I never knew about. Then I noticed the footer. The school district had changed its logo 2 years before Ruth died. The letter used the older version. Ruth had kept stacks of old stationery in a desk drawer. That proved opportunity, not forgery. The stronger proof sat in Miriam's archive. Ruth's sealed deposit form had been signed 3 weeks after the date on Evan's letter. On it, Ruth wrote that the manuscript was unfinished, remained solely her work, and could not be published without Leah's approval. She named me as the person authorized to decide whether the archive could be opened after her death. If Ruth had truly handed the book to Evan 6 weeks earlier, why would she later describe it as solely hers and place restrictions on publication? Evan's defense was still plausible enough to create trouble. Ruth may have wanted his help, and later forms may have been cautious or incomplete. We needed more. Miriam asked if I remembered Ruth's writing group meeting from that month. I did not. She searched her calendar and found a note Ruth read new ending at the Hawthorne Writers' Circle 5 days after the supposed letter to Evan. 3 members still had copies of the pages she distributed. Each page carried Mercer Press job number 22-04-017 and Ruth's name. At the bottom of the last page in Ruth's handwriting was a note. Evan wants me to make him central. This is not his book. It is not even mine alone where Leah is concerned. That sentence was painful, but it was clear. The apparent problem was unauthorized publication. The deliberate layer was the forged letter and missing binders. The wider layer appeared in the server logs. Evan had begun copying drafts, recordings, letters, and photographs 7 months before Ruth died. He had been building his version while she was alive. I called Leah and asked her to come to the shop. She arrived with a manila envelope containing letters from Ruth. Several passages appeared in Evan's book, almost word for word. One had been written after Leah's second relapse. Ruth ended it with, "Your worst day is not public property, even when the people who love you had to survive it too." Evan used that sentence as the opening epigraph of Chapter 9. He removed the words, "not public property." The published line read, "Your worst day belongs to everyone who had to survive it too." Leah stared at the page until her face went pale. He reversed what she meant. Yes, he made Mom say the opposite. That was the moment the betrayal stopped being only theft. He had used Ruth's authority to justify violating Ruth's values. I finally called Allison Beck at Northbridge House. I introduced myself, gave the title, and said I had evidence of disputed authorship and unauthorized private material. I did not accuse the press of wrongdoing. I asked them to pause shipment while they reviewed documents. Allison's voice became cautious. "Mr. Mercer." Evan represented that he was the primary author and that his mother left him substantial notes and permission to complete the work. He also gave the library a letter supporting that claim. We believe it is not authentic. That is serious, I understand. Do you have documentation of your wife's authorship? Yes. Send copies, not originals. I will notify our publisher and counsel. We can temporarily suspend additional distribution while we review, but copies have already shipped to some reviewers and retailers. How many? Approximately 400 advance and promotional copies. Leah closed her eyes. Allison continued. The public release is 6 weeks away. The Friday event is listed as a preview. We can ask the library to postpone it. No, I said. Leah looked at me sharply. I chose my next words carefully. Do not let him present the book as legitimate. But before you cancel anything, I want to know whether your team can attend a private meeting at the library Friday afternoon. The library has original records. My daughter wants the matter addressed directly. Allison said she would call back. After we hung up, Leah said, why not cancel now? Because Evan will tell everyone the publisher panicked over a family disagreement. He has already created a story where he is the responsible one and we are unstable. So we let him keep planning for 2 days while we remove his access and verify every claim. That was the quiet counterplan. First, we protected Leah. Northbridge agreed to halt shipments and notify major recipients that the text was under review. Leah contacted her recovery supervisor and explained that private information might circulate. She did not share details she did not want repeated. She also met with a counselor before deciding whether to attend Friday. Second, we preserved and verified evidence. Miriam created certified archive copies of Ruth's deposit materials. Rosa exported print job metadata and server logs. The writing group members provided dated copies and short statements about Ruth's authorship and restrictions. Third, we removed Evan's access. I changed the shop alarm code passwords, cloud credentials, and building locks. I removed his administrator account from the server. The system showed that the night before he had attempted to delete 2 archived draft folders. The backups restored them automatically. That was the professional standard he overlooked. Years earlier, after a ransomware scare at another print shop, I had configured our archive to retain deleted files for 90 days and send a report to a separate account. Evan had helped modernize the system, but had never asked how deletion retention worked. Fourth, we prepared a reckoning without revealing all of it. Allison called back Thursday morning. She and Northbridge's publisher, Martin Cho, would attend a private conference at the library at 4 p.m. The public event remained on the calendar, but the library removed online ticket sales and prepared a notice in case it was canceled. Evan knew none of that. He continued performing innocence. He posted a photograph holding the book beside Ruth's portrait. The caption read, 3 years after losing my mother, I am finally keeping my promise to finish what she started. Relatives congratulated him. Former students of Ruth shared it. One of Leah's recovery friends texted her a screenshot and asked, "Is this about you?" Leah did not answer. At noon, Evan came to the print shop. He pulled the locked front door, then knocked hard on the glass. Rosa let him in after I told her to. He walked to my office, smiling too widely. "Why did you change the alarm code? Why were you here after midnight last Saturday?" The smile vanished. "I was checking archived images for the launch presentation. You did not ask. I didn't think I needed permission to use family photos. You needed permission to enter my business." He looked past me toward the fireproof cabinet. "Did a package come for me?" There it was. I said, "What kind of package?" "Promotional materials." I haven't seen promotional materials. That was technically true. I had seen books. He studied my face. Evan had inherited Ruth's ability to notice language but not her patience. "The library event is tomorrow," he said. "I assumed you were coming. To hear you talk about your book, Mom's book. Finished by me. You never told me Northbridge bought it." I wanted it to be a surprise. Surprises usually work better when they do not involve dead people's manuscripts. His jaw tightened. She asked me to finish it. When? Near the end. I was there near the end. You were always there. That doesn't mean you heard everything. He opened his phone and showed me a photograph of Ruth in bed holding his hand. She trusted me. I never said she didn't. Then stop acting like I stole something. The word came from him, not me. I said, did Leah approve the passages about her? She is not named. That was not my question. She'll overreact because everything has to be about her pain. I watched my son say it without hesitation. For years, he had supported Leah while collecting evidence for a private case against her every missed birthday, every crisis, every dollar, every hour. His parents were distracted. Some grievances were real. His solution was not. You should leave, I said. Are you threatening to skip the event? No. That answer pleased him. Good. It matters that the family is there. He left without asking about the package again. Rosa waited until the door closed. He thinks you don't know. He thinks I know enough to be suspicious and too little to stop him. Is Leah going tomorrow? She hasn't decided. Leah decided that evening. She came to my house carrying Ruth's laminated promise card. I want to be in the room, she said. You do not have to prove strength by sitting through this. I'm not going for him. I'm going because every decision about this book has happened while people assumed I couldn't handle it. I nodded. What do you want from the meeting? I want the book stopped. I want Mom's name restored. I want a public correction that does not tell strangers more about me. And I want Evan to admit he knew the rule. He may not. Then I want him to fail while denying it. That was Ruth's daughter speaking. Friday afternoon, the library's small conference room held 10 people and too many chairs. The room had glass walls with blinds drawn halfway. On one side stood framed photographs of local authors. Ruth's portrait hung near the door wearing a red scarf and laughing at something outside the frame. Miriam sat beneath it with 2 archive boxes. Allison Beck and Martin Cho from Northbridge House arrived with marked copies of the book and a legal pad full of questions. The library director, Janice Bell, brought the event file. Rosa came as custodian of the print records. Leah sat beside me. Evan arrived last, wearing a navy jacket and carrying a leather satchel. His wife, Brooke, came with him. She looked confused when she saw the publisher. Evan stopped in the doorway. What is this? Martin stood. We need to address serious questions about the manuscript before tonight's event. Evan looked at me. You contacted them. I contacted the people whose names you used. He pulled out a chair but did not sit. This is a family dispute. It has nothing to do with the book's authenticity. Allison placed the advance copy in front of him. You represented yourself as the primary author. You stated that Ruth Mercer left you notes, recordings, and written permission to complete and publish the manuscript. She did. Did you write the majority of this text? I shaped it. My mother left fragments. Miriam opened the first archive box. Evan stared at the gray preservation folders. What are those? Ruth's deposited manuscript and records, Miriam said. She never completed the deposit. She completed it in person. That material was preliminary. Rosa placed 5 bound proofs on the table, each with a different Mercer Press job number. These are production copies printed over 4 years. The digital archive includes creation dates, revision histories, and matching files. Evan finally sat. Earlier clues gained new meaning in steps. The owl paper clips Ruth used appeared on her home drafts and in archive photographs. The job numbers matched pages distributed to her writing group. The final manuscript contained sections copied into The Quiet Daughter, with only names and transitions changed. Ruth's private letters to Leah had been altered to reverse their meaning. Martin opened to the epigraph and read the published line, then the original sentence. Brooke looked at Evan. You told me your mother said that. She did. The longer version was sentimental. Leah spoke for the first time. You removed the words that protected me. Evan did not look at her. You're not identified. My recovery group is. The motel is. The miscarriage is. Mom's bracelet is. Anyone who knows us will know. That is what memoir does. It was not your memory. His strongest excuse came next. I typed the book when Mom was dying. I organized the recordings. I drove Leah home. I held this family together while Dad hid in the print shop, and Leah consumed every room she entered. Mom told me I was the only one who could finish it. Some of the room went still because parts of that statement were emotionally true. I had hidden in work. Leah's crises had consumed rooms. Evan had typed chapters and driven long distances. Truth can be used as a camouflage when it is wrapped around a lie, Martin asked. Where's the original written permission? Evan handed him the letter on Ruth's school stationery. Miriam placed the later archive deposit form beside it. Allison said, "The two documents conflict." "They don't." She wanted me to finish it and still wanted Leah protected. "Then why did you publish Leah's material without approval?" "Because she would never approve anything honest." Leah's hand tightened around the laminated card. Martin said, "Did Ruth sign this letter in your presence?" "Yes." "Who else was there?" "No one." "What file did you print it from?" "I don't remember." Rosa slid a report across the table. The document file was created on Mercer Press computer 311 months after Ruth died. Evan's face lost color. He looked at me. "You went through my files." "No. You created it under your user account on my server. That does not prove I forged the signature." "No," I said. "This does." I placed a high-resolution scan of the letter beside a funeral thank you note Ruth had signed in her final week. The signature on Evan's letter matched the thank you note exactly, including a small ink skip in the loop of the R. Not similar, exact. He had scanned and pasted it. Rosa enlarged both signatures on the wall screen. The shapes aligned perfectly. Brooke whispered Evan. He stood. "You're turning a formatting shortcut into fraud." She gave me verbal permission. "Then why manufacture written permission?" Allison asked. "Because publishers require documentation." I knew what she wanted. "You knew what she wanted," Leah said, "and you knew it wasn't this." Evan pointed toward me. He kept the manuscript buried because controlling Mom's legacy made him important. I did not answer immediately. That accusation touched my flaw closely enough to hurt. I had kept the manuscript locked away. I had delayed difficult conversations. I had told myself I was honoring Ruth when part of me was afraid to read the whole truth without her. So I said, I should have asked Leah sooner what she wanted done. I should have stopped treating silence as protection. But my failure does not make your forgery permission. The room remained quiet. Martin closed the book. The release is suspended. Northbridge is terminating publication pending formal resolution of rights and authorship. We will notify distributors and reviewers that the work is disputed and should not be quoted or promoted. Evan's hand gripped the back of his chair. You cannot erase the work I did. We are not deciding today whether you contributed editorial labor, Martin said. We are deciding that your representations to us were materially false. What about the advance? Brooke asked. Allison looked at Evan. That will be addressed under the contract. Brooke sat back as if someone had pushed her. She had not known. The power Evan thought he controlled disappeared in ordinary sentences. The event would not proceed. The library removed his author page. The publisher stopped distribution. The launch banner in the lobby came down. The memorial lecture would not carry Ruth's name beside his book. Janice, the library director, said, We will issue a brief public statement that tonight's event is canceled due to unresolved authorship and privacy concerns. We will not disclose Leah's history. Evan laughed once without humor. So everyone gets protected except me. Leah stood. You were protected for years. You mistook it for proof you were right. He looked at her then. You think Mom chose you over me? No, Leah said. I think Mom gave both of us boundaries. I was the only one who knew mine mattered. Evan turned to leave. Before he reached the door, I said the line I had been holding since the box arrived. You did not finish your mother's book, son. You edited out every sentence that could have stopped you. He paused beneath Ruth's photograph. Then he walked out. There was no applause. The library staff quietly asked people waiting in the lobby to accept refund vouchers for the canceled event. The launch table was covered with a white cloth. Boxes of books were moved into a locked office for return to the publisher. I stood near the conference room while volunteers took down a poster with Evan's face on it. Leah came beside me. "Do you feel better?" she asked. "No, me neither." That was the honest ending to the confrontation. Justice did not make Ruth alive. It did not give Leah back the privacy already exposed to 400 readers. It did not erase Evan's years of resentment or the genuine work he had contributed before deciding contribution meant ownership. It only stopped the next wrong thing. The aftermath took months. Northbridge recalled most advance copies, asked reviewers to delete digital editions, and issued a correction about disputed authorship permissions and private material. Evan's contract ended, repayment of the advance was negotiated, and the speaking opportunities built around the book disappeared. Brooke moved into her sister's house for a while. She later told me Evan had used part of the advance to keep their mortgage current and hide the collapse of his business. She had believed the book was mostly his because that was what he told her. I did not blame her for not discovering a lie designed for her. Leah's greatest loss was harder to measure. For several weeks, she stopped speaking at recovery meetings. She worried people were comparing her to the woman in the book. When someone asked directly, she said, "Parts were taken from my life without permission, and the book has been withdrawn." Then she changed the subject. I offered to pay for therapy. She said she could handle her own bills, but accepted help with one thing: securing Ruth's letters and recordings. Together we created an inventory. Leah decided what stayed private, what could enter the sealed library archive, and what should be destroyed. The recordings of her late-night conversations with Ruth were hers to decide. She listened to one. I sat outside the room. After 20 minutes, she came out holding the recorder. "I want this deleted," she said. I handed her the confirmation screen and let her press the button. That was the moment I finally fulfilled Ruth's promise. Not by guarding a cabinet, by giving Leah control. The manuscript itself presented a harder question. Leah read Ruth's final draft over the next year. Slowly. With a therapist. She marked passages in 3 colors: green for public, yellow for revise, red for private. Ruth had written beautifully about shame and love. She had also written things Leah found unfair. Dead people do not become perfect authors simply because they cannot defend their revisions. I learned to hear Leah criticize her mother without treating it as disloyalty. Evan stayed away. At first, Evan accused me of choosing Leah again and demanded payment for his editorial work. Through mediation, we acknowledged the typing and organizational labor he had actually performed while denying him authorship and barring further use of the manuscript or private materials. The settlement was not revenge. It was proportion. Leah asked why I agreed to pay him anything. "Because truth should not become selective just because we are angry," I said. She thought about that. "Mom would like that. Your mother liked being right. So do you. I'm trying to recover." She laughed. A year after the canceled launch, Miriam invited us to the library archive. She had arranged Ruth's papers in acid-free folders. The sealed collection now included the original drafts, Leah's restrictions, the publisher's correction, and a note explaining that one unauthorized adaptation had been withdrawn. History would not remember only the attempted theft. It would remember the correction. Leah stood beneath Ruth's photograph and asked Miriam whether the manuscript had to be published to matter. "No," Miriam said. "Archives are full of work that mattered before anyone bought it." That answer changed something in Leah. She decided not to publish Ruth's memoir as written. Instead, she began writing her own book, not about addiction details, but about privacy, family storytelling, and the difference between being loved and being used as material. She titled the first draft, "What Belongs to the Living." I printed one copy. On the final blank page, I placed a Mercer Press job number. Then I asked what she wanted written on the inside cover. Leah thought for a moment and said, "No one decides for me because they think they know what I would say." I printed it exactly. Evan and I did not speak for 18 months. Then he came to the shop on a rainy afternoon, though I will not pretend the weather meant anything. He looked older, thinner, and less polished. He had taken a communications job at a manufacturing company and was attending counseling with Brooke. He waited at the counter until Rosa told me he was there. I came out of the back room. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," he said. "That's good. I want to return something." He placed an owl-shaped paperclip on the counter. Ruth had used dozens of them. This one had a small scratch along the wing. "I found it in the folder I took," he said. "Where are the missing binders?" "In my attorney's storage. They'll be delivered to the library tomorrow." "Why now?" "Because I kept telling myself I deserved to keep proof that I helped her. Then I realized the binders proved I didn't write the book. I let that sit." He looked around the shop. "You were right about the archive. This is not about the archive." "I know. Do you?" He nodded. "I wanted Mom to choose me once. Not as the reliable one. Not as the person who could fix the website or drive across the state. I wanted her to say the most important thing belonged to me. She loved you. That wasn't the same as choosing me. No child gets all of a parent." He looked down at the paper clip. "I made Leah pay for that." "Yes, I made you pay too." "Yes." He took a breath. "I'm sorry." The apology did not repair the book, the forged letter, or Leah's exposed history. But it was the first sentence he had spoken without arranging himself as the victim. I said, "You should apologize to Leah when she is ready to hear it. I already wrote to her. She may not answer." "I know." We stood between stacks of paper and boxes of envelopes, two men who had spent years confusing usefulness with love. Finally, I said, "I can give you coffee." He almost smiled. "You still make it terrible." "Yes, then maybe water." That was not reconciliation. It was an unlocked door with no promise about what happened next. 2 years after the wrong box arrived, Mercer Press celebrated 50 years in business. We held the anniversary in the shop after closing. Rosa brought cake. Former employees came with children and grandchildren. Miriam displayed a small exhibit of local books we had printed over the decades. Leah placed her own finished book on the table. What Belongs to the Living had been accepted by a university press after she removed every story that was not hers to tell. The acknowledgments thanked Ruth for teaching her to question even loving narrators. It thanked me for learning that protection without choice can become another form of control. Evan was not listed. He attended the anniversary anyway at Leah's invitation. They spoke for 10 minutes near the paper cutter. I did not listen. That was their conversation. Later, Leah handed me the first finished copy. The cover carried her name in plain black type. Only her name. Inside, she had tucked Ruth's laminated promise card. Leah decides what becomes public. I started to return it. She closed my fingers around it. "Keep it at the shop," she said. "Not in the cabinet. Somewhere people can see it." I placed it in a small frame beside the front counter. Customers sometimes ask what it means. I tell them every story has an owner, even when a family shares the consequences. The wrong box that arrived that Tuesday carried 12 books with the wrong man's name on the cover. We could not unprint them, but we could stop pretending that possession was permission, contribution was authorship, or love entitled anyone to another person's worst day. And in the end, that was the lesson Ruth had been trying to write all along. If this story made you think about who gets to tell a family's secrets, share your view in the comments. And subscribe for more family justice stories about people who finally protect the truth without becoming cruel.